Welcome to Ninon Speaks Media Image. I'm Ninon de Verderosa. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. And as I always say, we had incredible guests, and today is a very unusual guest. But actually, I was brought up with what he does. He's a concert pianist, absolutely amazing. He's from Lithuania. He's Lithuanian, and he's absolutely incredible. I've got a resume sitting in front of me that is non-stop. His name is Edvinas Minkstimas, and he started at the age of 18. Well, no, he started performing at 14, but I'm sure he started way before that. He's just brought out one of his recordings, and he's recording piano concertos from Brahms, Rachmaninoff, Liszt, Beethoven, you name it, he's done it. So let me introduce my guest today, Edvinas. How are you?
Excellent. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Ninon, for having me on your show.
Well, I was at one of your piano concertos in Las Vegas here, and you just took my heart, and you were just so amazing and just so very relaxed and very sort of just you obviously know what you're doing very, very well. Now we've got down here that you started or did your first piano concerto at the age 14. And but let's go back before that, when you really started playing the piano. How old were you?
I began playing piano when I was 4 years old, but I sort of thought that my story was unremarkable. Like many gifted children, they began their age early. My path to music was sort of, you could say it was not usual, it was not typical. We had piano at home, but neither of my parents studied music. My mom painted some paintings, she sang, my father played violin, but they all learned to do this as amateurs. They never had the ability to study arts or music. And somehow I would just walk up to the piano and, you know, push keys around, make some noises, and my parents eventually decided that the best way to get me rid of this habit was to send me to music school. Little did they know that will only make matters worse.
They thought if they sent you to music school to have piano lessons, you wouldn't like it and you would leave it, and that would be the end of that.
Exactly, but things turned around. You know, I certainly didn't like to practice piano that much when I was a child, when I was a baby, but I liked playing. I liked playing music, I liked making music. You know, when you have to repeat something over and over again, that's not so much fun. But playing.
How did you get on with your teacher? Did your teacher realize that you were a child prodigy?
You know, I was the youngest kid in my school, and they usually took children at age 6 or later, and I was the only child at age 4 to begin my studies. My teacher, she was very kind, she was very patient with me. I like to discuss everything. I wouldn't take any instruction lightly. So in that sense, I was very unusual, and she was a very unusual teacher, because typical teacher back then, it was still Soviet Union, last years of the Soviet Union, and the typical Soviet school, the Soviet music teaching was authority-based. So teachers were very imposing and very strict.
Wow.
My teacher she was very kind. She very musical. And I think the most important thing she spoke to me was the love of music, the love of beauty, and trying to find that beauty in whatever you do.
And she realized, obviously, that what you were gifted with, and this is why she probably took kind of a shine to you, because she realized that, you know, you really kind of liked it, and you were very natural. You were probably very natural at the piano. It wasn't an effort for you.
It wasn't hard, and I liked being on a stage. I really enjoyed myself out there, and I don't know, I guess I was sort of mostly a very silent child, but when it came to playing music, playing piano, being on the stage, I just loved that.
You kind of woke up and became you.
I guess that was my way. That was my way to express myself, and I don't know.
So Do you think that what your mother and father did, because they really actually encouraged you, that more parents should actually do that, because you do have a gift, and so many people in this world don't. They have a gift, but they don't get the opportunity to actually practice it as a young person.
Absolutely. I believe that parents' support is essential. That it's so, because as a child, you always look up to your parents. They're your biggest authority. They're your center of your world. Everything happens. They plan everything. Everything happens because of them. You are in this world because of them. So their approval is extremely, extremely important. Their involvement even is very important. And sometimes I do give master classes. I teach individual students. I have some very talented children, sometimes even 6 or 7 years old, that come to me to play. And they always encourage parents to participate, and it's very important.
That's wonderful. Did you ever think, when you stepped on stage and you gave your debut at 14, that you would end up where you are now? Did that ever cross your mind? Did you have that? Did you have that inspiration in your playing to really be one of the greatest out there?
No, at the time I really took things one step at a time. Actually, before I played my debut concert, I still remember, that was February of 1995. My father passed away a month prior to my debut concert. And it was very difficult for me. I had to make a decision whether I ultimately would be able to pull myself together, go out on the big stage and play with the orchestra.
Wow.
And I thought about it a lot and decided that my father, he would be so proud to see me there, and I just had to go and do it. So I did.
So he actually gave you the inspiration.
He did, and he was very supportive. I remember when I went to Moscow in 1992 and I played at the big Tchaikovsky Hall. I played at the Tchaikovsky competition. I was, 11 years old. He went there with me. He was there for me, and so absolutely.
Now, in Lithuanian, did you have the freedom at that particular time to be able to kind of do what you wanted to do?
Well, yes and no. I was fortunate in that my childhood coincided with the last years of the Soviet Union. Everything was falling apart. The system was falling apart, and even though we were technically still part of the communist Soviet Union, there was an air of spring felt everywhere, because Lithuanians, the Lithuanian national movement, the freedom movement, was penetrating all layers of society. So you had the government people changing, you had even people that belonged to Communist Party leaving, so it wasn't quite as strict. I fortunately never experienced the worst years of the Soviet Union, but I was lucky in that. I was able to play music, and eventually, still as a child, I witnessed the collapse of the Soviet Union, which was incredible.
Yes. Do you go back to Lithuanian very much?
Well, I wanted to go back to one of the first statements that you made and correct it. At this point, I feel that I'm Lithuanian-born American pianist.
Okay.
Because I lived in the United States for 15 years now, for quite a long time. And prior to that, I lived in France. I grew up in Lithuania. True, I go there maybe once a year, sometimes twice a year, to play concerts usually.
Well, if you want to really change everything, you've got to kind of improve your accent, because you definitely have a very strong accent, and it's not American. And it's like I have an English accent, and I've been trying for years. I've been in America for years. I am American, but I still don't have an American accent. So you and I have got to work on this a little bit more.
I was told it's impossible. It's certainly impossible for me. It's very difficult. Yeah, but I have to work on it.
It does. Now, you've played in many places, and you've done, which has been your, I noticed you played at Carnegie Hall here. How was that when you were invited to play there? How did you feel? Because this is one of the most prestigious places probably in America to play.
I was very excited. It's like playing Wimbledon in the finals of Wimbledon for a tennis player, or NBA finals for a basketball player. This is the big thing, playing in Carnegie Hall, and I will not deny I was nervous at the time. I
I
was
would
nervous.
think you would be. I mean, you're going into the greatest place in the world to play the piano. Did you have an orchestra behind you, or did you just play solo?
I was playing solo, and I was also playing with the chamber orchestra from Vienna, the Mahler Philharmonic Society. I knew that I will be on the stage with wonderful musicians, and I also knew that a lot of my friends are coming to support me. So that also helped a lot.
Wonderful. How do you choose within your mind of what you would like to play? Or do they ask you certain things that they would like to hear, or did it just come from you, and then you have to choose um, what you want to impress the world with?
You know, it's not so much, I guess at this point, it's not so much about impressing anyone necessarily. I usually fall in love with a piece or a composer, and I experiment. I try to put different programs together. Sometimes the presenters invite me to perform, and I ask if I could play this and that piece, but most of the time I'm completely free to select my program. For example, I was listening to the music by Vince Guaraldi, the Charlie Brown, Peanuts, everybody knows those cartoons. And I thought to myself, perhaps there are good arrangements for piano to play. After all, Vince Guaraldi was a piano player.
Yes.
That's how I discovered this music, and I put it together with Gershwin and other composers, and it was a very successful program. People liked it.
People. So you obviously like to please your audience, so you have to kind of sort of play something that then you know that because everybody, you can't play anything too heavy because maybe you'll lose half your audience. Because I remember when I was young, 12, 14, and 15, that my mother and father would take us to an orchestra every Sunday. We used to go to a classical orchestra and listen to Rachmaninoff and Piero Gamba and all different people we would listen to. So I was brought up in that. But there's some music that could be very sort of, very heavy and very boring.
True.
So how do you, because you don't seem to get there, you seem to play things that are sort of lively and they have something attached to them.
Oh, absolutely. I believe that music, for me, music that I play provokes emotions. And I want to evoke emotions in my audience. I want to connect to the audience. I want them to enjoy the concert. I don't want them to fall asleep.
No. My dad used to fall asleep.
No, listen. There were a few out of the last 5 classical music concerts that they went to. 2 of them, I was almost falling asleep. It was very difficult to stay awake. And there was part of it.
It's the music. It's sort of the tranquil music. That's where it kind of puts you, and you can't help it.
I really believe that there is only good music and bad music. For example, in classical music, some pieces are just not that successful, even by great composers. Some pieces are, some pieces are not. And you kind of, sometimes you listen and you wonder, where is this going to?
Yes. Now, why did you choose classical music? That's because I know we all start out when we play the piano, learn to play the piano, we kind of learn the classical way, the classical music. Some stick to it, some don't. Some go into something else. You actually stuck to it, and you obviously love it.
It's hard to say. My path, I feel, has been like a bullet train. I started playing piano, I was going through different competitions, and I was losing some, I was winning some, I got more concerts, more concert engagements, performing, traveling, studying. There was never a moment's break. There was never a real break where I could sit down and think, well, would I like to play perhaps jazz, or would I like to... Perhaps I would. I don't know, and I think I will definitely experiment more and more. You will hear from me in the future playing different programs, playing different music in my programs.
Oh, I think that's wonderful to have that open mind. There's nothing better than classical music and jazz put together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many composers from Piazzolla to Gismonti that experimented, from Golijov, a lot of American composers that do that. In fact, one thing I noticed when I was at the Juilliard School, all my friends, young composers there, were fusing different styles together. Movie music, jazz, indie, folk, classical, different styles together. And that produces very exciting combinations. For me, it only makes music richer. more enjoyable.
It does, because the old classical concerts are the old classical concerts, you know, Beethoven, Chopin,
Right.
these. They're all the old ones, and they kind of stuck to the classical. Whereas in this day and age, it's a little bit more open, that you can, which is what the invention of life is, because life changes, we all change, everything changes in every direction, and why shouldn't the classical music change? It doesn't have to stay the same.
I really feel strongly about piano competitions. For example, as a pianist, I can speak, or music competitions in general,
Yes.
because they impose certain rules. And then you have wave after wave of people, very talented people, playing the same pieces or very similar pieces all the time. And even when I play composers such as Liszt, I try to pick a piece that is rarely played but is very good. And it
So,
takes some time.
yeah. Well, it takes some initiative on your part, because you're playing something that people are not familiar with, and you're putting it out there, taking a chance, actually,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, of course, you always do take a chance. Well, perhaps less so in classical music, because you are still playing a piece of a very well-known composer, so you have that security behind your back. But at the same time, you know, yes, you are taking some chances, because people will come to the concert thinking, I know this composer, but I really did not know that he was writing pieces like that. What's going on?
Yeah, yeah. Do you have you written music yourself, or are you going to write music yourself, so you could become like a Beethoven, and you can become like a Liszt? You can.
Oh, I wish, but you know.
You wish. Go ahead and do it.
Okay, yes, I will do that. Yeah. I
Why
better get
not?
to work.
Why not? They compose, so why can't you?
You know, I did compose. In fact, I wrote a piano concerto. I'm writing two film scores right now.
Oh,
Uh,
really? Can you tell us what they are?
well, I can only say that one is a documentary and the other one is animation, children animation score for children animation film, which is about 40 minutes. Very exciting characters. Um, it's uh, it's a very different. It kind of reminds you of X-Men a little bit, but different characters, different plot, of course. But of course, there is a good superhero that saves the world, and you have all the villains. So I have a lot of themes to write. It's very exciting.
I was going to say, when you go to write a film score, and you go to actually play it as well, because you're not only writing it, you're playing it as well, right?
Yes.
And you will have solo piano parts, and then you will also have the orchestra?
Yes, but you know there will be some excerpts that will be just orchestral, some for piano with orchestra. So.
Okay. How hard is that to do? And you say it's only an hour, but when you're going to do an hour of continuous music through a documentary, which you might have a few breaks, but I would imagine very few, because there's normally music in the background of anything. How do you manage to keep that rhythm and that together for a whole hour?
You know, the key, like what I do immediately, I study the script and I study the visual component of the film. I like to have a pre-production ready so I can see what is happening, what is the sequence of events, what are the scenes, what are the backgrounds. And then when I work, the key thing is to select elements, a few elements that appear throughout the whole piece, so that each little fragment does not seem too disconnected, because you have very different things happen during the film.
Yes.
And yet it has to feel that it's the same score, it's the same film, it's the same thing.
Yes, so you've got to have that, as you said, the same score running through the whole hour, but at the same time, you've got to make those different movements, those different sounds, those
Oh yeah.
sound, less sound. How long does that take for someone to do that? Well, for you to do that.
It really varies. You know, it can take you anywhere from few weeks to many months, because eventually you come up with much more material than is needed, much more material than ends up being in the film.
But that's a good thing.
Yeah, because you also it's a creative process. You suggest the music that you feel strongly about, But then you have the producer, right? You have the director that says, no, 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 no. This goes out. This we're using. This we're cutting. Now we're changing one scene. We have to, rewrite this. Sometimes they don't like it. But I know I'm very excited because I believe that this will be a wonderful outlet for me, a wonderful way of contributing to music, making music, and something I hopefully can play too.
Absolutely. Is this the first time you've done this, music scores for movie?
I've done a couple projects before in the past, but never two projects simultaneously, and it's on a bigger level, so I'm very excited.
And is that in America or is that in another country?
One in South America, one in Europe. Nothing yet in the United States, but I hope.
In the United States. Yeah, but then you're going to have this, that when you get all this together, then you can present it to America and, let them know what you can do. Because we have a lot of animation here, as you very well know, animated movies. And that is something that is really quite beautiful. I'm going to mention a name here, and I'm going to mention Liberace.
Absolutely.
Now, the reason I'm mentioning Liberace is because I was talking to Jonathan Warren. Jonathan Warren is the consul for Monte Carlo. Monte Carlo is, I love Monte Carlo. I want to retire there eventually. But he was telling me all about, and I told him you were coming on my show. And he said, oh, Nina, he said, ask him about Liberace because apparently this is one of your idols. Now, he plays piano completely different to you. Oh, he did.
Well, not so much. In fact, we were talking about open-mindedness.
Yes.
And Liberace began as your typical piano player boy. He went to Juilliard, he went to best schools, best teachers, he was playing classical music. But he ultimately, what I believe he wanted to do is to connect to as many people as possible and to play for as many people as possible. He did not want to limit himself to few venues, like you say, Carnegie Hall. Yes, there are maybe 10, 20 wonderful venues.
Oh, yes.
He wanted to play for millions of people, and he did. And one reason why I admire Liberace so much is because he popularized piano playing and piano music so much. He did so much for piano music in this country. Did
he have an influence on you?
Of course he did, because he was also an arranger. He would pick different tunes, different themes. He would pick famous pieces that you already know by Beethoven and arrange them and make them exciting or more exciting and capture the audience. Right.
Like a modern version, like the old, but with a modern version of playing it.
Absolutely. I mean, when I look back in the 19th century, Liszt, right? He used to come on stage, throw his white gloves towards the audience. Girls loved him. He was a very handsome man. He was a true gentleman. He was a romantic idol, but his concert was an event. You can think of Mick Jagger or Michael Jackson come to perform in the city. That's what Liszt would do. And Liberace, to a certain extent, was able to do that in last century.
And he did it well. He did it very well. I mean, we don't realize it was like I believe it was Fred Astaire, one of the greatest dancers that we ever had on screen.
Oh, yes.
Nobody realized how much he practiced. He practiced every single day, and I think Liberace was the same sort of person, and I believe you are too, that although you are good and you are great, you still practice all the time. And I think Liberace was one of those, wasn't he?
Absolutely. I think so. When you watch the movie and he says, I only play when I play, but in the end, he was very conscious. As a truly great artist, he always wanted to do his best. He felt responsibility.
Yeah, he felt that responsibility to his audience, and he never wanted to let them down. As flamboyant as he was, and as the clothes and the outrageous, but then you look at Beethoven, right? Mm-hmm. There's another one that was like a little bit out there, so, you know.
Yeah. Beethoven once almost smashed a chair against his patron's sponsor's head. He had wild temper.
Yeah.
So, unpredictable, but he practiced. He did practice, and he was very conscious about it.
So, what do you think about the young? I always go into the younger generation because I love them and I think they're amazing. We don't have a lot of the communications and everything in schools now for these actual young people to be able to that don't have the money to go to have lessons and don't have all this. Where are we going? I hope we're not losing it. Where are we going with that?
It's hard for me to speak. I think this is the question for Mr. President, and
Okay, I'll call him.
but I believe that music and arts in general should be part of curriculum just like sports and math and physics and chemistry and English. It's a very important component. It stimulates our creativity, our appreciation for beauty, um, because art is about beauty, is about humanity, is about speaking language that every person understands, no matter which country they're from. It makes society better. I think that arts and culture make society better. And
And
that's
it's funny because anybody in the entertainment business or anybody who has this sort of charisma to do this, they always seem to find a way, don't they? And that must be their creativity because they're very creative people. They always seem to find a way to do it or how to do it.
Yes, it's true. I mean, look, after all, people that win a great victory, sportsmen that win the World Cup, they celebrate because it wasn't easy. They had to work for it, they had to be creative, they had to practice, they had to work hard, they had to be together focused. You enjoy it that much more when you achieve something. And of course, there is always resistance. I think it's just part of life, it's part of how things
Do
are.
you, yeah, I agree. Do you think classical music is kind of disappearing a little bit because there's not as much out there, people don't listen to it? The younger generation are not really evolved in it because the parents are not really teaching them as much as they used to.
I think that, first of all, piano will never disappear. Piano
No.
is,
Sure.
and you can play so much great music with the piano. You can play everything.
Yes.
I think that the classical music, in a, as you said, boring, strictly academic sense, is disappearing, and I think it's for the better. Look, when you had great artists, when you had Brahms and Chopin and Liszt, it was much less structured. It was not. You didn't have all these committees and panels and competitions. You just had artists that were exciting, playing for the audience.
They just came out and played.
Exactly.
I mean, they just. Yeah, you're right. I never thought of it that way. You're right. They never had this big going to school, and I mean, a lot of them didn't go to school. A lot of them kind of played.
They just took private lessons, but it wasn't like the whole industry that forces you to, to do this, to do that, to, go through all these different auditions. In fact, you know that Franz Liszt was not admitted to Paris Conservatory. He was denied admission because
Why?
because he was not French.
Oh,
On the
because he
ground-
wasn't French. Oh my
yeah, they
God.
didn't admit him. Even though he was very good and he was extremely talented, he was probably the best of the whole bunch, they didn't accept him.
They did.
But
Wow.
that didn't hurt his career. He became very, very famous.
Absolutely. Now you've just brought out you've just brought out a CD or a record, whatever they call them these days. Have you just launched it, or you're launching it, or what are you doing with it?
CD. Well, there are several CDs out already, and we're thinking of releasing another one. We're still, in the talks, but I'll let you know as soon as I know myself what's happening there. But no. It's interesting because I have a lot of music recorded for TV, radio stations in Europe, in the United States and South America. Over 6 hours of music, but only 2 CDs have been released so far. So we're hoping that I will be able, first of all, to record more music and to release more CDs.
Now, when you say we, who is the we? Are you married? Do you have a wife yet?
No, not yet. I have a girlfriend. I don't have a wife yet. But I'm speaking for myself and for my management because it sort of becomes a team project.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So you actually have a complete team, which is they like what you do.
I have 2 management agencies that I work with, one in Europe and one here in the United States.
Where do you like working better? Oh, and it's hard for you to answer that one because you're in America at the moment. But where is it? Where do you feel more comfortable with yourself? You know, you regardless of living in America, being in America, you're still European. Where do you feel more comfortable that you can really learn and do and feel really at ease?
Well, I think the fact that I consider this to be my home answers the question to a certain extent. I love being here. I think it's a great country, and I especially like. And people are very appreciative,
Yes.
and there is a lot of positive energy. I mean, Europe is a very interesting place because you can't really speak of Europe as a single country. Although we have European Union, we have so many different cultures and countries. Um, I always felt that in France, I lived in France 3 years. Because of my accent, perhaps, I would have remained an outsider for most of my life. Um, in fact, when I was in France, I had many friends, and they all were artists from other countries.
Oh,
Literally,
really?
yeah, all. I had maybe one or two French friends out of, let's say, 60 or 70 people that, had this, like, affiliation with we would go to concerts, we would go to events, we would visit, we would have parties together. Only one or two French people. It's amazing, but that's what it was.
So, what's been your favorite country? Uh, with the audience and because in Europe we have a lot of the very large opera houses where you can play, which are very beautiful, and the acoustics are absolutely amazing. Which has been your favorite?
Well, I think those opera houses would be wonderful, except that they have to sing. So maybe after a few years of practice, I'll get there. But they don't let you play piano there that
You're
much.
not allowed to play the piano?
In the opera house, you normally don't. Now, in the times of Liszt, he would just rent an opera house and
Yeah.
yeah. But now it's almost unheard of. Like they never do that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. That's part of the industry. Again, we are talking about the industry. Yes, that's.
You talk about how it changes because that's where you would always go to your concerts. The opera, everybody went to the opera house, whether you sung opera or whether you played the piano or what you did, you always went there.
Yep, and that changed completely. Now you sort of it really compartmentalized. You have venues where are mostly chamber music, where you basically don't hear people playing solo. You have orchestral venues. You have solo recital halls. One example, actually, in United States, you know how Carnegie Hall
Yes?
has 4 different halls.
Yeah.
So the violin recital hall is mostly for recitals. You have very typically solo pianists, unless they're huge names, they play in the violin recital hall.
I
It's
didn't know that, but that's so they all have these different places that you can play. And I guess that would be because of the acoustics and because of the sound and trying to get it the best it can be, right?
it's I think it's partially acoustics, but it's also economy because they don't expect a solo player to fill an enormous 2,000-seat hall. Again, unless you're a very big name. So really the demographics and the business model has changed. But on the other hand, when I look back at the great piano players in the past,
Hmm.
they were excellent managers. They were working very hard to invite people, to get people to come to concerts, to publicize. They were involved in all aspects of the concert. And unfortunately, the industry produced a lot of musicians. I would say that started to happen about 50, 60 years ago, that their thinking is, I'm going to play piano,
Hmm.
and the world is going to come to me. I don't have to do anything. Everybody will be there for me. It's not necessarily true.
Well, that used to be the old way, and now you say you have two managers. You don't have one. Before, these
Right.
people never had a manager. They didn't even have anybody that to take. They would just go to places. I don't know how they would. Well, because of who they were and how famous they became. Because
Hmm.
of and the proof in the pudding is in the eating. So they would play and people would engage them, and then they would go. But now it's a little different story. It's now done totally differently, right?
Yes, it's true. But in the end, it's the quality component that carries the day. Because if you if people don't really know you, and it's very hard to get hired for musicians, the best way is to perform so people can hear you playing on the stage. That's the best way to get engagements for anybody. And so even big management agencies such as Kami or Harrison and Parot in Great Britain, they're struggling sometimes because nobody hires musicians just because of their resume. Everybody wants to hear them play.
Absolutely. And you have to be well known. You have to get people have to like you. People have to come and see you. And then if you're in the modern music, it's probably a little easier, but you're actually in the classical side of music. And, you know, that is really, really hard. So you have a manager in Europe, and then you have a manager here.
Right.
And
but
then it seems like you're busy all the time. So I'm looking at a resume, I got all over the place here. You're very busy.
Well, and I also look forward, speaking of Liberace, I look forward to doing things with the Liberace Foundation because Jonathan kindly invited me to be on the board, the advisory board of the foundation. And I have worked in the past with different nonprofit organizations. I have worked with fundraising for culture, for arts, even for medical research.
You did autism here. Somewhere you did a concert for autism and made 100,000 or something. You did.
It was so cool. We did a series of. It was very cool because we combined live music, we combined silent auction, we combined fashion show. We got local fashion designers come with their collection, come forward with their things, and we did one show in Washington, we did one show in New York, and we did a few smaller scale events, private events, and it was a lot of fun.
Now, when you do something like that, which is, you know, you're actually giving back and you're helping other people, whatever your thing is, but then also other people get to hear you, so you actually have an opportunity to get out there and play in front of a lot of people, which you wouldn't normally be able to do. So it's kind of a great publicity thing at the same time. You're giving back because that's what you want to do.
Absolutely. Oh, and speaking about Liberace Foundation, like what excites me is the idea that Liberace Foundation will go back to its roots, and starting next year, we will give out scholarships to talented young people, talented young musicians, which is wonderful. I mean, that's exactly what is needed, that to encourage young talent, to give them performing opportunities, and to support them financially, so they're able to perform more, they're able to go out more, and expose themselves.
Absolutely. Now, the scholarships you're obviously going to be giving out are not just only going to be for classical players, it's for anybody that, you know. Would that be for any instrument or just the piano?
For now, we're going to limit our attention to piano. There are so many talented people. Just in the piano field, there are so many musicians. And, you know, we're still in the process discussing the criteria, but I think that one of the most important elements for us is to see someone who is a natural showman or showwoman. They love being on the stage, they love connecting to the audiences, they love communicating to the audiences, because that's what's needed for music, for classical music.
Yes, because you can't just sit there and play. You've got to also have a little charisma, like you do. You played the most beautiful pieces. You played 3 gorgeous pieces, and you captured your audience, and everybody was in awe. And but for you, it was very natural. But at the same time, you played what they would like and what would sort of, you know, also to make you look good.
Well, I really don't think about that much, but I want to connect to people because. It just feels so much better when an audience and you're on the same page, you're almost breathing together.
Oh, connected, yes, the connection.
Yeah, you're feeling the music, you're enjoying the music, and that energizes me. I draw energy from that, feeling that people are into it, that they're following me, that they're having a good time. Absolutely. And Liberace wanted people to have a good time, so there we have a connection.
Yes, and then you want them to come back and see you, and that's how you create it. And you've spent, now you've become, you know, I believe, very famous. You live in Vegas, correct? Las Vegas?
No, I live in Washington.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you live in Washington. I forgot the 3-hour difference. So you live in Washington.
Wish. It's a fun city. I wish, but I hope to come back to visit soon.
Yeah, well, you know, Vegas, the reason I bring Vegas up, Vegas is like a music town. It's like that's what you've got, a lot of music people here. You've got a lot of bands here, a lot of what is going on here. Liberace was, you know, an absolute number one here, and that's why they've reopened his museum. I believe they've got 2 places that they've opened up with his name on them now, and which is amazing because to me, this was one of the most amazing people that I knew that was a pianist. And like, and after a few years, it kind of everything disappeared, and then Jonathan Warren kind of reinvented him back again, and they've got this museum going, but they've also renovating his house. There was a house apparently.
Right.
Somebody bought this home and is redoing the whole thing apparently back to what it used to be, which is amazing. Are you helping in any way with all that?
I just became an advisory board member, so I'm taking my first baby steps within the foundation.
Okay.
But I think Jonathan is an amazing person. From what I learned, from what I understand, he managed to turn the foundation 180 degrees because it wasn't doing so well for a while, and yet now it's coming back. And
It closed down. It was gone. It was everything. This famous guy that suddenly all of us everything it disappeared. But now he brought it back. And he's obviously the chairman now of the foundation and everything, and doing very, very well. Have you ever thought of having opening up a foundation of your own?
Well, I'm not quite that famous. It will.
Oh, you will be. Come on.
Sure. All right. All right. All right. No. Seriously, I'm thinking of something eventually, especially. In the Baltic, in the area where I'm coming from, those countries, young musicians, they need some support and help too. Maybe there is something I can do there and give back that way.
I think that's wonderful because, and you're absolutely right. We do have in America, we have the opportunity. Although they've taken communications out of school, we still have that incredible opportunity, whereas these other countries do not have that opportunity.
Yep, and it's sad really because I receive so many, I don't want to call them help requests, but I receive a lot of letters, very touching, very moving letters from young musicians in my home country especially, who know me, who appreciate me, and they're asking for advice and for help and assistance sometimes, and I try to always help however I can. I can't always help them directly financially, but I try to make introductions. I try to recommend them for a performing opportunity. So, but the good thing is,
you give them the guidance. You give them the guidance of where to go. You give them some shortcuts.
Right, because in many aspects, I was also lucky. I met people in my life who gave me good guidance, good advice, recommendations, helped me, believed in me. And that's crucial for anyone.
That is crucial, and that's in any business, anything you go into. I think that is. Now, what about your personal life? Let's get. Do you have a personal life? Do you have other things that you like to do? And do you play other instruments?
I try to enjoy my friends. I have a lot of crazy musician friends, so we're having fun. I love sports. I play tennis. I play basketball, even though I should be careful with my hands, but I do. And now my friend is inviting me to car race, so we'll see. Maybe I will never get to do my foundation. I hope not. But car racing sounds fun. And I do swimming. I try to hike. I try to bike. I try to exercise a little bit because so much of my work is centered around piano and sitting by the computer, taking phone calls. So it's a lot of kind of sedentary work. You always sit and sit and sit and sit.
And also you're very much alone, because I would imagine even when you're rehearsing, there's only one other person there with you, and it will be the teacher. So you're kind of, you've got you, the piano, and the teacher. So you've always sort of, got this sort of enclosed area of just sort of, concentrating on what you want to do and how you do it. So
it can be unbearable too. Imagine someone playing the same 10 or 20 seconds of the piece over and over and over again. It can be very difficult for someone to listen and to be with you. So yes, it's a solitary work.
How do you know? That's interesting. That's interesting what you just said. You said you have to play a piece over and over again. Right. How do you know within your mind of what you want, you've got it right?
You know, it's hard to describe this, but there is sort of a sense that things click. That, so to speak, the music that you're playing sits in your hands. You have control over it. That
Hmm.
your mind is ahead of your fingers. You know exactly what you're doing the next moment. Every movement, every turn, every jump, every whatever you are doing with your hands, you're in control.
Because your head is ahead of it, a split
It has
second.
to be. It
Yeah,
has to be.
cool,
And you
because
know what you do is really you essentially imagine if you are um, shooting a film at
hmm
1 frame per minute initially. Then it becomes 10 frames a minute and becomes 100 frames a minute. So you are speeding up because you need to bring the piece up to the tempo where it works. But you can't do that immediately in a quick tempo because you have so many different details to pay attention to. It's like, it's overwhelming. You have so much information thrown at you, so you need to slow down to do it exactly right, and then you speed things up. So it's like you create your comfort zone, you leave it, then you create it again, and you leave it again. So it's a fascinating process, really, how human brain works. And also, if you're not careful and you're just starting to learn the piece,
hmm
if you're learning it the wrong way, if you play a few times the wrong way, it immediately registers with your mind. It stays there. It's so difficult to get rid of a bad habit when you
So
play
what
piano.
did you do? Get up and walk around and then come back to it to try to clear your mind so you can just come back to a different thing, or you just keep sitting there until you get it right?
And sometimes you just don't feel it's working. Sometimes you sit down to practice and your mind isn't there.
Yeah.
Let's say something bad happened, something sad, you are worried about something or your friend. You cannot focus on the music. You
Yeah.
cannot focus on what you're doing, and you have to be completely focused.
And I would imagine with music, you would have to lock everything out completely, and just to make sure you're just so concentrated on what you're doing, and not to be disturbed at any time.
My
That
girlfriend is not too happy, but sometimes I have to turn off my phone or turn off the volume so that I don't receive phone calls when I'm practicing because once you lose your concentration, it takes time to get back.
Well, that's like anything, though. That is truly on anything, because if you really concentrate and you stay focused on whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's playing the piano or whether it's buying a building, if you don't stay focused and concentrated, and you lose that, once you lose it, and it's funny because sometimes and you talk about the phone and the computer, when you get involved in the computer and you're writing something or doing something, you really can't be disturbed, and nothing comes in. And you have to actually train your mind not to allow anything to come in.
Right. And you know, it's sort of interesting because sometimes my friends make me feel so old. They talk about this Flickr and this WhatsApp and other applications that they know to connect more. And I tell them that I already have like 6 or 7 different applications I use to connect with people. That I don't think we need more applications. It's not the problem. The problem sometimes is that you don't actually go out and meet people face to face. You don't have a truly and natural interaction. You
No.
always are behind the screen, and I think that's one area where we as society are lacking, and we need to improve on that. It's still, you can't replace an actual interaction with person when you are with the person
And
physically.
you have more advantage on that, because you have to go out and play the piano as well as anybody can listen to you on the computer. But when you do a concert, and where you go, you're sort of you're out there.
Yes,
Well, if,
absolutely.
if anybody wants to get in touch with you and also to get this new CD you're bringing out, and you've got one out already, and you're bringing another one out.
Two already. Two are out
Two
already.
out,
And
and then
yeah.
you've got a third one coming out. Where can they reach you?
Well, the best way is to email me, call me directly, and I'm happy to mail CDs to people that are interested.
What's your email address?
It's my first name at my last name.com, and I wish I could spell on the screen. I can't, and I'm sorry for my name is long and complicated.
So is it your first and second name when
Yep.
it's your
Yes,
first name? So it's your first name, which is Edvinas
correct.
at
Minkstimas.
mixed with, okay, and then .com. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
there's
Okay. That's quite simple. I don't know if you want to give your phone number out. Maybe you don't, because it's going to everybody. That's up to you if you want to do that or not. So they can reach and they. Now you've got a few things coming up, and I noticed you've got something coming up. Or you just did something in Malaga. You were in Malaga, the classics.
Yes, yes, I was at a big festival in Malaga. It was fascinating because I did get to teach one week and perform 4 concerts the other week.
Wow.
Now, what was so interesting for me is to see that most of the performers, most of the artists, as well as the organizers of the festival, were graduates of leading American music schools.
Oh, how wonderful! So you were very in tune, no pun intended, but you were very in tune to the whole thing.
The American education, the American music education, especially on the conservatory level, such as Juilliard or Curtis or Peabody, is the best in the world. And one thing that people learn here is actually certain elements of business that they can hopefully bring to the table to help music in the long run. Because see, you have these wonderful players. They go to, let's say, Manhattan School of Music. Yes. But after experiencing United States, after living here and learning how society works here, they bring certain habits, certain understanding to the table, to their advantage. When they create a festival, when they start running a concert series, or a TV program, or whatever they want to do, it helps them a lot.
Well, yes, because I think what you're saying is it becomes a business. So as great as a piano you might be, and as great a manager you might have, you still have to know the business aspects yourself. And that's funny you should say this, because in the music business, there's so many musicians that don't have any idea about business, and they lose a lot of their money.
Right. And going back to what you said, I really thank you for the compliment. Yes, I am very busy, and the only way I can do things what I'm doing, I have to organize my time well, and I have to tell myself, okay, I have to prioritize, this is what I'm doing, these emails I'm answering today, these are leaving for tomorrow or 2 days from now, these are not urgent. You have to always prioritize what are you doing, how you're handling your time.
Wow, that's a good message out there, because so many of us don't do that. I happen to do the same as you, because I've always got a great long list of stuff to do. I don't know where it all comes from, I don't know why. But prioritizing is being focused and knowing that this needs to get out now and this needs to get, because you've got to let people know where you're playing, right?
Yes.
To get all that out there. I mean, whether you're playing in America or Europe or wherever you're playing doesn't make a difference. People still have to know where you are.
Listen, there are so many different angles, because first of all, I'm fortunate. I have a number of people that want to study with me, so I give master classes. I write music, I need to practice, I prepare for concerts, I travel, you deal with the management. Sometimes I directly am in contact with presenters that present me. I have newsletter system, and I'm on board of several organizations. So all of this together, it takes a lot of juggling, a lot of planning your time, it's fun.
And so, as you sort of come along this path at the age 14, when you first went out there and you did your thing, and you became more and more out there, and now we look at you now, and you're not only a concert pianist, but you are also a businessman, because you've realized that that's what you've got to become as well. And if you don't have everything organized yourself, which you can dedicate things for other people to do, but if you don't know about them and you're not organized, you can't be organized, then you can't do what you do. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, because in the end, everything depends on how you plan, how you prioritize, how you see yourself, and how you organize yourself. No manager can replace that. In fact, managers, when they start working with you, they want you to have all the information ready. And there are so many questions that only you can answer. For example, who you are as a musician, what are you playing, why are you playing, where you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do you want to play?
So that's like a business plan. I mean, we know you play the piano, but you still have a business plan. Now, notice you're going to be playing in Vienna, Austria.
I'm going to be playing in Vienna. I'm going to have another tour in South America. I will be playing in Las Vegas. We are still talking about the dates, but most likely it will be 2015, playing at the Smith Center, which is a.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, well, let me know on that one. I'm going to definitely come and see you.
I was so amazed when I saw the Smith Center. It's a beautiful.
Oh,
It's
it's beautiful. Yeah, that's actually the Smith Center in Las Vegas is nothing to do with the hotels or anything. It's a very sort of Vegas place for people that live in Vegas. You've got a lot of the people that live here that actually support it and are with it and help it. So it's not one of these big showrooms. In fact, I'm going there this week to see a young lady who's a singer in one of their jazz rooms, cabaret room, I believe. And it's amazing what they've done for the people that live, for the residents and the people that actually live in Vegas, because we don't always want to go to the Strip, because everything's the Strip, everything's, clubs and
right,
strips.
right.
And this is like a beautiful theatre of our own, the Smith Center. They've made that beautiful. Are you not also going to be in Lithuania? And you're going to be there in August, aren't you?
I'm going there in October.
Oh, October.
Okay.
October. So how far in advance are you all up to date?
It's, with most places, it's 1 year, 1 year and a half. There are a few engagements that are 2, 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
Because some places plan really way in advance, and then that was one shocking thing I learned in the United States, because when you study at conservatory, you just think I'm coming to a presenter, I play really well, and they're going to book me for next month. That's not how it works.
No,
Everything is 4 years.
no, not when you're famous like you are. It doesn't work that way. They got to start booking you because otherwise you're gone. You'll be playing somewhere else, right?
Well, thank you. Yes, but also because everybody plans ahead a lot.
Yeah,
That's
America does. America does that a lot. And I think the whole world is doing that now because they've realized there's so many people out there. There's so many. Do you have much competition, do you feel?
less and less so because I get better and better.
I love it. I love it.
But also because as I said, I'm very open-minded, and I think I will not be following a traditional academic, you could say, path of music. For me, music is a live thing. I want it to bring joy, to be beautiful, exciting, and to excite people.
That's
So
wonderful. What message, because I always like to do this, what message would you like to give to the younger generation on something that they really should do as playing the piano?
Well, my message is it's most important not to win a battle, but to win the war. Sometimes we lose, we don't play a successful concert, sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes we don't win a competition, but the person who perseveres, is creative, positive, and works hard will succeed in the end. That's
Absolutely wonderful. That's amazing. Well, Edvinas, you've been absolutely incredible. We've come to the end of our hour. And I know you were asking, how am I going to talk for a whole hour? Well, you just did, and you are amazing. We got a lot of information out of you of how we can help other people and how you also help other people and how you've achieved so much. You've just been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
Thank you, and thank you to my audience out there for listening. And I hope you've learned a lot. And if you've got a piano, go out there and play it. There's nothing out there to stop you except yourself. So go out there and play it. I will see you next week, and take care. This is Ninon de Verde Rosa from Ninon Speaks Media Image. See you next week. Thank you very much, Adias. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, Steve. Are you there, Steve?